John Peterson, during the recent city election campaign, downtown revitalization was a hot topic. Last week, you and several council members visited other communities to see what they were doing with revitalization. Clearly, this topic is getting a lot of attention. So, where does it stand on the priority list now for the city?
I think it stands very highly. Let me back up too by saying I wasn't originally on the panel, but was asked to substitute the last minute for Mayor Bethune, and she really regretted she could be here. But I think City Council ranked it very highly from a number of different perspectives. One is I believe the City Council also believes, as I do, that what happens in the downtown really sets the tone and the image for the community. We all remember what happened last year during the shooting, and the message that got out there in some quarters was that Myrtle Beach was not a safe place, not the downtown. It wasn't specifically downtown. So I think a lot of the community's reputation is derived from what happens in its downtown. And I think we've got some evidence of that. I think in that respect, I think very much what happens in the downtown is tied to Council's #1 initiative, which is crime, both the reality of crime and the perception of crime. And I think the council, from conversations that we had at the retreat, the conversations we had going to Greenville and coming back, really bought into the idea that the more activity that we can have in the downtown, the more that we're going to impact that in a positive direction, and actually cure it rather than just continue to deal with the symptoms. So I think it's very extremely high on council's priority list right now.
Thank you. Chuck, what are 2 or 3 of the most misunderstood or overlooked facts about the DRC and its revitalization efforts?
Well, I think Lauren hit it on the head clearly in her presentation, is that we really are a resource. We're not a regulatory body. And those businesses that have come to us and asked us to assist them in the process of getting their business open or remodeling it or redeveloping it have seen huge successes in that process. So I would say I could go through the list of examples, but I think the real reality is to entice the business community to use us as a resource for them going forward.
Okay, and Lauren, thank you for your presentation, but in the way of priorities, what's on your agenda for the next 30, 60, 90 days? What are those 2 or 3 things at the top?
I didn't share that with you?
Well, you did, but you get a chance to reload.
I'm just teasing. Again, DRC is an asset to the community, and I want people to believe that and to know that, and that's one of my big goals, is to show that the DRC is a part of this effort. And I want to be a better communicator in the organization, and to share with everybody what we're doing and what's going on as we go through this process with the city, the chamber, and whomever else is involved. So it's just keeping those doors open and sharing our story.
Thank you. This is for any and all, so you can go down the way, jump in when it comes to your mind. Could public art play a role in a revitalized downtown Myrtle Beach? And if so, what could the city do to encourage that?
Public art.
Talk to a downtown anybody, right?
Public art is about place, and public art has a place in all of our communities. One of the best in the country is Portland, Oregon. Does a 1% for the arts program. Any private development that's done, 1% goes back to public art. There's a lot of ways that you can encourage this. In my own community, I started the program, so there's the ability to start some things that then you find other private sector people want to get on board, and we now have probably in the downtown there's probably 30 or 40 public art projects. So there's it definitely is a piece of, it's the flower beds, it's the trees, it's public art, and it all mixes together.
Couldn't agree with Chris more. In downtown Durham, we're very proud of our arts community, and the arts community, you got public art, you got the galleries, and you got the people, and the people bring a certain liveliness to your community on a day in, day out basis, artists, and it's so very helpful to have them there. They will be, in many times, your pioneers in some of your areas that, you know, maybe look a little sketchy, and that they'll pioneer those areas for you. And we did, you know, one of the things you had asked was one thing we didn't do, and it actually goes back to public art for me, is we missed the opportunity to put the 1% for the art on buildings, both public and private, when we were absolutely taking off in downtown Durham. And you have $1.7 billion worth of investment. Can you imagine how much public art that could have built? We missed the mark. We now have it for public buildings. We should have it for private buildings. We don't, and we should.
Right.
Obviously, as we've traveled, we've seen the advantages of that. Our community over the last decade has put a lot of effort into the sports marketing, and we've seen the benefits from that. I believe that there's a concerted effort on the part of council and our community to be looking at public arts. We have one new mural that's downtown in the DRC area. We have another property owner that's going before CAB soon. Things that were not contemplated or not allowed 10 years ago are now through the CAB planning and the city council are now things that are priorities for that process. Soon we will start to see our first publicly funded and privately funded statue go up in Plantler Park, which was been a decade process through the DRC.
John, Lauren?
Just a slightly broader response in terms of beautification. That was actually something that came up in a very strong way at City Council's retreat last week. I think there was a belief that there were particular areas that were not looking as welcoming as we needed them to look as a community, and that we needed to make the investment to bring those up and to make that much more appealing. I think public art is a big part of that. I really appreciated the work of the Downtown Public Arts Initiative. I'm looking forward to the Goddess of the Sea, and I'm looking forward to kind of getting some enthusiasm springing from that to have more public art in our downtown, because I think it's critical as well.
Mark?
Yeah, I would agree with all the statements that have been made, of course, and, you know, we are getting ready to install the Goddess of the Sea. We have a great arts community just in Myrtle Beach. I mean, even in the area that our offices are housed, there's a lot of galleries and a lot of local people that, you know, want to see more of it. And it comes out all the time in our conversations. So I hope while we're having all these discussions and in regards to redevelopment, that that's a piece of it, that we can figure out how to make that fit into the projects that we're looking to do.
Okay. John, for you, you were part of the Durham revitalization and actually been in the game before, so to speak. So you can appreciate the challenges that Myrtle Beach faces. Two-part question.
Yes, sir.
What do you see as what's holding us back, and or what do you see as being an obstacle? An obstacle will be in the future. Holding us back would be something that's tugging on us, that's keeping us from getting going.
I think maybe want to challenge the premise of the question for a second. I think it is difficult to see for those of us that are here every day, but there has been a tremendous amount of progress. I think Lauren spoke about it, and she's absolutely right. I think if you flip through a scrapbook of your children, you may not see, you'll see enormous differences from one year to the next year and the next year. And I think if you step back and look at what's happening downtown, that's the case. So I think there has been that progress. What we haven't had is the celebration of that progress and using one element of success as a springboard to another. And I think that that's part of what we need to do. My recollections of my time in Durham, which I really enjoyed working with Bill in our career, but there was a lot of stuff that happened even before DDI got started in an effort to try to get something to work. And it wasn't, we would throw some spaghetti at the wall, some of it would stick, some of it wouldn't stick. But as we had successes, the projects came closer and closer together. And the successes became closer and closer together. It wasn't a smooth transition. It picked up speed over time. And after I left, it really picked up a lot of speed. But I think that's what I see happening here, and I think we're at the point now where there's a critical mass of people that are interested and determined to make something positive happen in our downtown. And I think we're at the point where we can start to make that happen in an accelerated way. But I do think that there have been those successes. We just tend to overlook them over time, but we need to be proud of the things that have been accomplished here and use those as success stories and not dwell on the failures and the shortcomings.
Thank you. As the three of you, Chuck, Lauren, and John, listen to Bill and Chris share with us today, what jumped out at you, and also maybe what do you think from the information they shared can be applied in Myrtle Beach?
Feldman is the whole thing again.
I think there was a lot that could be applied. I mean, two very different cities from Myrtle Beach, we all have different assets. But I think it's just the message that they shared, you know, how they got there, what they did to get there. You know, they were creative. I mean, listening to some of these stories, I mean, not everybody has a bag of money laying around to, you know, build a great big office building somewhere, but, you know, there's creative ways of doing it and how to get people involved. And, you know, they kind of both said it, maybe not directly, but it's worth fighting for. It's going to be hard. And, you know, I think we all know that, but I think we all feel that it's worth fighting for. And, you know, I'm ready. Let's do this.
Chuck?
I think the biggest takeaway for me on this is what's here today in this room, okay, is the need for greater involvement for people supporting ideas and talking about ideas and helping council to formulate their vision for where they want to see the city over the next 5 years. I think oftentimes we all get busy in things, and typically what happens is just a few people that will show up there with an idea, equally number of people that show up there opposed to the idea. And sometimes I feel like we don't get enough broader support one way or the other. I liked the speakers talking about providing cover for the elected officials, and I see that potentially is our biggest challenge going forward, is how we give our city council the strength of realizing that there's greater public support for things than maybe it appears at times when there's only one or two speakers.
Thank you. John?
I think we had valuable lessons from both. I liked the kind of forward focus in both cases, the Greenville case and the Durham case, and also thinking about millennials as they are going to be, and increasingly are, making up the lion's share of our tourism base and also our employee base. I think it's really important that we think about what that group wants. I think the idea of walkability is something that I know that both cities have focused on, and I think it's an important issue in our downtown. And again, I said this before about focusing on the success and using that to leverage the next project and the next successful effort, I think is really a critical thing and a takeaway from both stories.
Okay. For Chris and for Bill, and I know you shared part of it when you did, at least I think I heard it, but what keys did you learn, or have you learned, or do you use to ensure collaboration within the community amongst the public sector, the private sector, and the local residents? Give us something to work with.
Well, I guess for me, probably, particularly in the early years when I was at Start Downtown Durham, I grew thick skin because there were a lot of arrows in the back in terms of, you know, it would get messy when you're trying to build a theater, a ballpark and stuff in terms of debate in the community. But the idea of, you know, being persistent, sticking with it, believing in your vision and staying with it. And as the projects came on board, one of the ways I like to phrase it is, you know, we mentioned the fact that the ballpark public bond referendum failed. And we went back and we did certificates of participation with the city council to get it done. And now you're 20 years later with the ballpark, and the way I like to phrase it is, I have trouble finding the people who voted against the ballpark, and they're all in the stands enjoying a family affair, eating hot dogs and having a good family time. And there's a lot of self-satisfaction to that over time. And the lesson, you know, that's an example of a lesson that taught me that, you know, believe in yourself, believe in your team, believe in the people who are on your side, and don't let other people drag you down. Stick with it, be persistent, do it well, and you're going to have a lot more friends 10 years later than you had 10 years earlier.
Chris?
So I think in today's world, we have got to be terrifically better at communicating. We all know the diversity of interests and opinions. So as we gather and generate our visions, where we want to go, it's imperative that the communications behind where we are trying to go are clear and deliberate and consistent and have the ability for people to interact. I mean, that has now just become a part of our work. We need, for what we're trying to sell, we need to put that in a communication form that can get people excited, get people enthused about their place. That's what we're trying to do. So I think that the communication piece, which historically wasn't as important, has now become terrifically important in terms of how we get people engaged and supportive and move our ideas forward.
Thank you. For Lauren and Chuck and John, we all agree that maintaining a family-friendly image in downtown Myrtle Beach is important. How do you see it now? How do you see our family-friendly image now?
I do think we have a family-friendly image. We work towards that, and I know a lot of the businesses in that area do the same. We want to have events that are family-friendly to bring people downtown, not just our tourists, but people that live in the area. And I think, we have to pay attention to what the perceptions are too, because, what somebody's perception is their reality. So I think we have to pay attention. We can't think that we're always doing it right. I think there's always room for improvement. So, but I do think Myrtle Beach does exude a family-friendly image.
Chuck?
I think one of our challenges will be, as I've traveled around and even the two cities that are here presenting, is that you can't go in their downtowns and not see young couples pushing baby carriages and all. And that's not part of the components that we currently have in our downtown. And I think for me, that would be one of the measures when we reach that point to where families are comfortable bringing their small children down and being part of our carnival entertainment area. I think then we'll have reached that point of being able to truly call ourselves family friendly.
John?
I think on the whole we are family friendly, but I think we have an opportunity to become much more so in the downtown. I think the key determinants of that is the reality and perception of safety, and our police department and our code enforcement people are working on that every day. And also the appearance of the place. I think we need to make it look inviting and feel inviting and feel safe. And that's really, I think, the challenge that we've got in front of us, and I think the rest of it will follow if we are able to do those things. But to answer your question honestly, I think we are family friendly, but yeah, I think we've got opportunities to really raise our game.
Chris?
Just a point on back on the details is that you have to do all the detail work consistently all the time, every block, right? You got to get the whole thing working, and there isn't anything too small. You think that there's some things that are too small, and in the end, there isn't anything too small. So there's a lot of work with that. But when you get back to thinking about, again, I'm going to say the word pedestrian, because it makes no difference whether it's a visitor or whether it's our own citizenry. The expectations that we have, the place that we want to be in, has to do with all the detail work that we do to make it that way.
Yes, Bill?
Let me follow up on Chris, because we talked about detailed stuff earlier before the meeting. When we really started taking off, being successful, and got a lot more people on the ground in downtown, all during the day and into the night, the perception and the image of downtown as being safe dramatically approved. Okay. Then it became very clear that as downtown was growing, downtown Durham was growing, that our city government and our county commission had responsibilities outside of downtown and into the county to keep the place clean, pick up the garbage, et cetera, all the things you need to do to have a nice, clean, and safe appearance. And so we made the decision at Downtown Durham that we would push for a business improvement district. And we would take that burden off of the city of the day in, day out cleanliness of the streets and sidewalks of the city, be eyes and ears for our police department, be available at night when big events are happening, be ambassadors to our downtown. That was not popular with all our downtown property owners. But the bottom line was all of them were being benefited by all the progress we had made, and a lot of that progress was on public taxpayer dollars. And so we instituted a 7 cents per $100 value tax on all the property owners in downtown, and that money has to be spent on clean and safe and ambassadorial roles in downtown. And it was an opportune time to do it because of the growth we had. It was just going to be more than our city government could undertake given their other responsibilities. And it was good to see that, it was controversial when we did it, and now everybody goes along with it, and there's not a peep out of anybody about it, and they're happy it's cleaner and safer.
Thank you. Chuck, we'll finish this segment with this one. What are your thoughts on why Burris and Chapin has not developed their large parcel of land? That kind of puts you on the spot, but it's on the list. And
First off, the perception, oftentimes when I read public or social media, is that the city closed the pavilion. City didn't close it. I mean, that property is owned by Burroughs and Chapin, and is the successor to the two original families that really laid out the grid system for our city. A lot of times I hear business owners talk about, well, we don't want to do anything till we know what they're going to do. And I would tell you that from my perspective, if we look around the city of Myrtle Beach at the things that Burroughs and Chapin has done, they do quality things. I wouldn't worry about what Burroughs and Chapin is going to do on their property going forward. They are a known entity. They have their roots in our community. They have the best interest of this community as part of their goals. I would challenge that even if I owned that property, I wouldn't want to be redeveloping it now yet until I knew what the comprehensive plan was going to be, where council was going to go, and that there was a concerted effort from the rest of the businesses to move in that same direction.
thank you. Can we show the survey results? If you hadn't gotten it in, they'll show on the screens. I think the two ones to the side. That is what you said if you took the survey. And by the way, this will also be these results will be posted on the chamber website at some point in time in the future. I don't know exactly when, but you can go on and get it as well. And while they're doing that, you can glance up. But one last question for each member of the panel to respond. Considering what you've heard today, give us a key point, or for that matter, give the people here today a key point that you would suggest that they take away from this session with them. If you said, wow, if they could just leave with one thing, it would be whatever, fill in the blank. Go ahead. Bill, you're on this side, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to go back. I'm not going to, since you don't sign my paycheck, I'm going to leave folks with the three I started with, which was, this is a journey. You're already started it. Stay with the journey, and you're going to be fine. It's, collective we go back to, more of you have to get involved. And if if you want this to happen, you need to speak up and be a part of that collective we. And then finally, this journey will never be done. It'll just be a phase in the next phase of the journey.
I just encourage, I'll just repeat what I said in my message, is just encourage people to get involved, become engaged in the effort, become part of the plan. This is your community. What do you want? Share with us what that is. We have another collaborative meeting coming up in March 14th at 12 o'clock at Train Depot. It would be great if those of you that are here today could be a part of that effort. If not, just, connect with us, be a part, just to learn about what is being said. And then if you can make other things at other meetings and they come to those, just be a part, be involved.
Engage yourselves with the DRC, with City Council, and the Chamber, and pay attention to the invites for different meetings. Again, Lauren just said it, March 14th, Train Depot at noon.
The same messaging. I guess I was just thinking that when Bill was speaking and was talking about the ballpark project, it kind of brought back one of my best memories from Durham. And that was how we started to get everybody involved in the ballpark process. And Bill kind of laid out that there's a rivalry between the city of Durham and the city of Raleigh. The Durham Bulls were being lured to move to Raleigh, and that got everyone, all the Durhamites, back up. And so the first response to that was that we developed a group of us, and I think alcohol was involved in this, but we developed a t-shirt that said, "No Bulls Shift." And that became the hottest selling t-shirt in Durham for a while. And actually, we ended up sending it to Cooperstown. I think the people that bought it, a lot of the Durham Bulls fans, started that chant at the ball game. And so everybody had an opportunity to get involved. And the moral of that story is I think there are going to be opportunities for you all to put your drop in the bucket and to make this happen. I don't think if you wait for the city council to do it by itself, it's going to get done. I don't think if you wait for DRC to do it, it's going to get done. I think it's going to take everybody kind of focused on it. We might disagree about the specific things that need to be done to make our downtown as great as it can be, but I don't think that there's anybody out here that really doubts that we need to do something. And I think working together, we're going to get a lot further.
Keep your eyes forward. Think big. Do it.
All right, I think we're ready here. Thank you. All right, how important is downtown revitalization to you? 92%, very important. Do you think downtown Myrtle Beach is family friendly today? 65% no. Do you like the idea of attracting arts, culture, and entertainment to downtown Myrtle Beach? 99% yes. Do you like the idea of closing parts of Ocean Boulevard to traffic to allow people to walk throughout downtown? 80% yes. Which of these would you most like to see open in downtown Myrtle Beach? Live music venue, 69%. Performing Arts Center, 68%. Restaurant, 64%. Public park, 59%. Retail, 49%. Amusement attractions for young children, 45%. Amusement attractions for young adults, 33%. Amusement attraction for teenagers, 31%. And bars, 28%. Mini golf, 3%.